I thought about bringing marshmallows, but it's. But this is an honor indeed, and I wanted to bring this because I know that fire code wouldn't allow us to put a little fire pit up here. It was easy to put together biographical information for this Handley graduate. He just had a book put out, and the book was edited by his sister, Donna Wilkins Downing, and Kathleen Clark. And I thank you, first of all, for my book. And on the cover, I was shocked to see that I'm right under Jim's armpit. And, but honored to be under your armpit. But that was a special day in the rededication of Wilkins Lake, wasn't it? That was an awesome day.
Very excellent. We had a lot of people there, too.
Yeah. I thought about wearing the same shirt that I was wearing then, but I just thought that wasn't necessary. Now, they want us to sort of keep this at 50 minutes, so being a broadcaster, there we go. We've got it going. All righty. This is going to be very informal. We're going to have some time at the end for questions. But as we've talked about on the phone, Jimmy, that anything that I mentioned that triggers a story, just take it and run. So we'll have some fun with it.
I appreciate that. And I will tell you, the lights are very bright in here. We would like you all to be involved, ask questions. But all I see is silhouettes. If you're not in the front row, I can't tell who you are. So we're not being rude.
No, we're not being rude. So, addressing that crowd at Wilkins Lake in 2019, and just like right now, holding microphones, it's like we're doing a remote broadcast at Wilkins Shoe Center. We did a lot of those over the years. Let's start off by saying that this Handley graduate, it took 9 years to graduate from Handley. But we're going to clarify that. Grades 4 through 12 is when you went to Handley, 1 through 3 at John Kerr. And a lot of people don't realize that Handley back then started at 4th grade.
Yeah, they kind of had it separated. As you look at the school, the two wings to the right were for the elementary students, the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. The first wing was 4th, 5th, and 6th, and 6th, 7th, and 8th, they kind of went in the area that we call the play court, which is now outside the Patsy Cline Auditorium. And then the other thing that's interesting is we had chapel every day. Mr. Umps sitting over here, I saw, he knows all about the chapel, but we as the little kids would be up on the balcony as the older kids came in. Then, of course, the senior class would march in. So we all, whether you're a 4th, 5th, 6th grader, we would worship all those big kids down there. And really, we knew all of them. We knew their names because we did. We knew we have a chance to be there one day.
Neat. Speaking of knowing names and looking up to those older kids, in a phone conversation, Jimmy shared the fact that you guys live close to the school and you used to go to watch all the sports, and those high school athletes were your heroes, and to this day you still remember numbers of players that were years ahead of you.
Right there is number 54. Reggie Baker, number 88. Greg Dick, number 52. Goes on. Because I lived at the school. We lived on Academy Lane. Think of the old hospital, basically, top of the hill. So it was, a mile walk to school, and there were no school buses. Everyone walked to school, and we walked, but lived there at school. Football, basketball, track. If you were in the gym by 6 o'clock, you might get in because the gym was small. If you weren't there for the beginning of the JV game, you weren't going to see the varsity game. And in the day's obituary and paper, you might see Ed Grimm passed away. Ed was one of the better athletes that ever been at Handley. He graduated in 1957, and he holds the school record for 50 points in one game. I was sitting in the bleachers watching it, wow. And they took him out at the end of the third quarter. So,
holy cow.
They did kind of feed him a little bit.
Okay.
Sure, Jim remembers that. His teammates were helping him get the score.
Well, your athletic career began in 1959 in 8th grade. You played football, basketball, track, and you were a natural. Former coach Jimmy Umps said you had big hands and big feet What size shoe were you, or which size shoe did you wear?
In the 7th grade, I wore 11 and a half. Back then was big.
Yeah, and he says you were one of the best all-round athletes to wear the maroon and white, which is quite an honor.
Yeah, I paid Jimmy to say that. Jimmy was kind enough to write a foreword to the sports section in the book, and I appreciate it. But as you go on from that, what happened actually was when I was 13 in the 8th grade, I was all arms, legs, and feet. And my parents were concerned about the way I was growing because I really don't have a big body. My head is actually small. They had ordered a special football helmet for me, but my arms and legs and feet are big. So he took me to UVA, and the doctor said, no, he's growing fine, he's doing well, but he's going to be about 6'6" to 6'8". So the coaches said, we want you to train you early if you're going to be that big. So Hunter Maddox was the coach then, and they asked me to come out for varsity football as a tackle in the 8th grade. I weighed 125 pounds. It's in the book, but I do think it's funny. Bill Shundo, who was a good friend of mine and later on was captain of the Wake Forest football team, Bill was a ferocious player in any sport he played, but very clean. He played till the whistle blew and everything. And I was up as an 8th grader holding a dummy while I'm wearing a red shirt while the offense started. They're running a sweep, and the job of the tackle was to offside come down and get me. Well, Bill knew that he outweighed me by about 100 pounds. So Bill kind of first time he came down just kind of hit me real easy. And the whistle blew, and Hunter Maddox said, no, this is live. I want live action, go full speed. And Bill said, but. And he said, I don't hear any buts. So next time down, Bill went full speed. And he hit me, and the dummy went one way, and I went the other way. And that was the end of my football varsity career. Later went from tackle straight to quarterback. So
Yeah, and the number, what was it? Was it 79?
Yeah.
Number 79.
Handley didn't have the numbering system that all the schools used were low numbers. 1 through 11 are usually your backs, quarterbacks particularly.
Right.
We started our numbering system at 50. So I had number 79 as quarterback.
And played linebacker too, right? Yeah. You were the first to receive Handley's All Sports Award. And I say that you were a natural, and all of this is in the book, but at Randolph-Macon College in Ashland, in your first cross-country meet with the team, not only did you win the race, you broke the record. And I want you to share how you prepared for that meet.
Well, two things. First, Ted Keller was the head coach, later the athletic director at Randolph-Macon. And Ted had asked me to come out and play quarterback for the football team. Well, they had 5 quarterbacks back. And I said, I'm a little worried about my grades. I wasn't a real great academician. So he said, you have no problem. He said, why don't you just run cross country? You're a good track athlete. You can run cross country. Well, back then in 1963, I didn't even know what cross country was. Nobody really paid much attention to cross country. So I said, yeah, I can do that, no problem. So the first race we had, I walked across campus and stopped at Campus Sigma House. C.B. Ashby was in the Campus Sig House. He played football and basketball for Harrisburg High School. Now he's around Macon. We kind of knew each other casually.
Yeah.
And CB later was a teacher at Handley and a Spanish instructor. And CB, I stopped by. He said, you want a beer? I said, okay. So I had beer with him. And he said, you want another one? I said, no, I got to go over and run this race. So I had to go about a block to the track. And the school record holder was on our team. And we were good friends. I didn't understand the scoring in cross country, and for those of you who are a little ignorant here, believe me, the first 5 runners, you score. The first guy place gets 1 point, second place gets 2 points, third place 3. It sounds real simple, but you have pushers. What the hell is a pusher? Only 5 runners score, but pushers push the other team's runners back. I said, I got to get in the top 5. I can't figure out the scoring. So that sounds simple, but that's the truth. So fortunately, I did break school record on the first race, and Robbie Robertson and I were good friends forever. But Robbie held the school record before
Wow.
that.
Did Coach ever find out that you had a beer before you started?
He never asked.
You know what's amazing, and this was fun talking about the other day, that you know, after all the years of high school and sports and college, that you continued even into your 40s playing flag football and stuff. And share with our audience here what made you decide to quit playing flag football.
Well, I played flag football for a number of years, and there was a number of different leagues over different times. So I'm now up in my 40s, and most of the players were in their 20s. And we had 2 guys on the team who were former college quarterbacks, but I was still playing. And I was in the huddle one day, and my wife, God bless her, she kept harassing me about, you want to get out of there because everybody's breaking arms, breaking legs. You know, you've got to quit playing. You got to go playing. So I was in the huddle and calling play, and one of my teammates called me Mr. Wilkins. I said, you know, it's time to go. So I hung it up.
That's awesome. As far as what sports taught you, as far as life and business, what do you say to that?
Well, it's kind of hard to say, but I've always been driven. I always pursued things harder. I think sports, I've always had a love of sports, and sports meant a lot to me. Any sport, anything I could compete, it was a case of competition. Anything I did, I wanted to be the best at it. And I think I tried that same thing through life in a lot of the other things I did. I knew I couldn't be the best offensive tackle, but I wanted to be one of the best players. In most cases, honestly, I wasn't the best player. That's one of the reasons they had the All Sports Award. I can remember Jim Barnett. You see Jim Barnett Park. The JA had the banquet, and they had outstanding football player. It was Dennis Hinkle, and he should have been. And then the outstanding basketball player was John Anderson. He should have been. Then the outstanding track athlete was Dennis Hinkle. And that's when the JA decided they needed an all sports award, which I got. I finished second in every one of those other categories.
But the first to win that award. The people that you list on the acknowledgement page of your book are all connected to Handley: teachers, coaches, administrators. It had obviously a huge impact on your life. But in your words, what is it that makes Handley so special?
Now, you can go on forever on what makes it special. Obviously, the architecture is great. And I think a lot of students realize it's special, but they don't really sink into them until they get in their 30s and 40s. They start to have a family, and they travel around. I know when we traveled in sports, see other schools, not only their quality of their school, but their team uniforms, their basketball court, their track. You know, what we had was so much better. And Ed Seibert was our head football coach my last 2 years. And we had warm-up uniforms for track, brand new. They were state-of-the-art. Most people use old Army Navy surplus sweatshirts. We had the best helmets in the league. We had a raincoat for the whole, I say raincoat, a big hooded canopy for the whole team. And Ed said, we may not play like a football team, but you're going to look like a football team. And I really think in a lot of cases, it did help us. We arrived at the field, we were the first school that didn't come in a yellow school bus. We came in the Handley athletic bus, which is Don Smallwood helped paint that bus. So we arrived in that, and we arrived in our uniforms. You know, I think it gave us an edge. I think the other team looked over and realized, damn, we're in for a game night. Yeah. I've always been proud to play for the judges. Yeah.
Well, there's that Handley pride. And you talk about, you can remember back in the day when the entire school system walked to Judge Handley's grave.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because of it's grown tremendously since then, they can't do it now. But used to be the entire school system walked to Handley, and areas like then we didn't have the mall. We had you had driving on Main Street, but it still was closed off, and all the parents were down Loudon Street, Boston Street, all the way down Mount Hebron, and the kids loved it. They looked forward to it. The guys would wrap aluminum foil around 6 or 7 roses and carry them down their side because It just wasn't cool. And the girls would carry them up high and we're proud of them. But it was a tradition that we really respected.
You said also that how impressed you were that all throughout your high school career that teachers and administrators showed up for everything.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned in the book, we had exceptional groups of teachers. I didn't think they were exceptional at the time. But looking back, Edith Garibrand, of course, Garland Quarles, Dr. Bouchon, George Craig, Eloise Strader. These people were lifelong teachers. Dr. Bouchon, I didn't find this out about 5 years ago. Dr. Bouchon lived on a farm over in Bunker Hill, West Virginia, and he looked pretty much like a farmer. I know Jimmy Upser were probably laughing. He generally wouldn't have his tie on too straight, and his jacket looked a little crazy. Great guy, great history teacher. I just found out about 5 years ago, he taught for 20 years at West Point before he came to Handley. His brother had a farm in Charlestown, and after he retired from West Point, he decided, well, I'll move to Bunker Hill. I still like to teach, so he taught at Handley. We did have some exceptional teachers, and most all of those teachers came to all our sporting events, and that was kind of a big deal to me. You know, they were proud of the fact of how the teams were doing. It's very hard to do today because there's so many sports, male and female. Back then we had 3 sports, football, basketball, track. That's all you had.
Well, that community pride at Handley certainly paved the way for the public service in your life and giving back to the community. And you had a great role model, your dad. James Wilkins Sr. served in World War II in Africa, started the Shoe Center in 1947. How many stores? We always think of the one store in Winchester, but he started with a number of stores.
He started 5 or 6 stores. We ended up basically with 3, Winchester, Charlottesville, and Lynchburg. And then during my lifetime, really mostly just the Winchester store. And very honestly, the Winchester store was our biggest store. It was better to have your resources, both manpower in one place, manpower and inventory. If you have multiple stores, that works, but you better have 10, 15, 20 because you need a whole level of CPAs and accountants to help you. When we had the store in Lynchburg, typical Monday morning, the phone would ring and the manager hadn't shown up, so there was nobody to unlock the door. So you jump in the car and drive to Lynchburg.
Again, talking about your dad, his dream about Wilkins Lake, Shenandoah College, later Shenandoah University. He brought that to Winchester, was on the board for 40 years, served on the Winchester Memorial Hospital Board for 25 years. So you grew up seeing that dedication to community every day. But to show what kind of a dad he was, I think it was 3rd grade at John Kerr. It was time for the Christmas program. Oh, 4th grade.
4th grade at Handley.
4th grade at Handley. I'm sorry. All right, 4th grade. It's time for the Christmas pageant, and you take it from there.
Many of y'all didn't know Gwendolyn Haynes, but again, Benny Butler, Jim Umps, I know they know very definitely. Gwendolyn, the Christmas concert at Handley was as big as Apple Blossom. There wasn't much to do back in the 60s or as much. So everyone, all the families, the auditorium was packed for the Christmas concerts. And all the school kids from John Kerr all the way through Handley were in the concert. So again, if you remember, sports. So we were practicing and she came in and said, the teacher said, now anyone who does not want to be in the Christmas concert, raise your hand. Well, next thing I know, I'm at Archie Fry's office. My parents were both in the office, and my father was very committed to working. He wasn't real excited about that, and he looked at me and said, "You will sing, and you'll sing loudly." And that was the end of the discussion.
And you'll enjoy it.
They told me you didn't have to. I thought, you can't trust adults.
Well, now you not only share your dad's name, but James R. Wilkins Jr., I'm going to make you fidget a little bit. We're going to, this is just a brief outline of some of this gentleman's accomplishments. You guided the family business Wilkins Shoe Center from 1967 to 2005. In 2005, you were named Retailer of the Year by the Virginia Retail Merchants Association. You received the Distinguished Service Award from the JCs in 1973. Also in 1973, you were president of the Winchester-Frederick County Chamber of Commerce. You're a founding member of the Greenwood Fire Company and donated boots yearly. Served on city council for 7 years. Fulfilled your dad's dream with the Wilkins Lake Project. You've been a director with Bank of Clark County for 23 years. You replaced your dad on the Winchester Medical Center board and served from 1981 to 2012, and we might add the longest term ever. And with the 2005 renovation of Handley, that shoe center, and we're going to talk about this towards the end where you met your wife, but it was in that shoe center that you shook hands with Russ Potts. There was a big renovation going on in 2005 for Handley High School, and maybe share how that conversation went.
Well, first place, Russ and I were always friends, always been friends. Matter of fact, I double dated with Russ before he even got married. I think I was 19 at the time. I can say that because my wife is native of Ireland, and she was 9 years old at that time. So it's okay. I can get away with it. But I was in the store on a Friday, and Dennis Kellison, who's superintendent of schools, had just announced the renovations. And I talked to him, asked him what they were doing and so forth. And the discussion. So then Saturday morning, Russ happened to come in to buy a pair of shoes, which I appreciated. And Saturday mornings were not as busy. I said, Russ, come up in the office. I want to find out what you're doing, what they've asked you to do, what they've hired you to do. And I knew when I said to him, I'd probably help him out with $5,000 or $10,000. We got talking, and I said, well, Russ, what are you asked to do? So he reached in his folder, pulled out some papers, and he had every item on campus that he could sell. The stadium, the flagpole, the bleachers, ticket booths, and so forth. And I said, well, Russ, one of my big concerns, I know Russ and I love him dearly, but we didn't always agree on everything. And Russ's job to do, which was to sell as much stuff as he could to raise funds for the exterior of the school. But that meant if you knew Russ, he was going to go to commercial aspects. You'd have the Capital One Bowl, the whatever Chevrolet flagpole, the Ford Motor Company scoreboard. That's great. He was asked to raise money, raise the money. So he started reading all the stuff off to me. And I said, well, Russ, I'll take the top thing on your list. And I said, what is it? He said, the bowl for $1 million. I said, okay. But I said, on a handshake, nothing signed, nothing in writing, no one has to know. We could raise all this money locally. The school is too beautiful to have it tic-tacked up with a bunch of signs, banners, logos. It's John Handley High School. The community's proud of it. When the $55 million was put up by City Council to renovate the school, there's very few questions. At the time, that was enough to build 2 high schools under today's scenario. Most people are so proud of the school, I wanted to maintain that. That's the whole reason I got involved. Once I picked Russ off the floor, I got him back in the seat, and he's got are you serious? I said, yeah. But I said, you've got to do it that way. Well, two funny things happened. Mine wasn't the first gift. A gentleman who was a real estate developer from New York had sent $100,000 in because his wife, who was deceased, had graduated from Handley. And it was announced, my gift was announced as a kickoff. And he sent a check for additional $100,000. I guess he felt like maybe I didn't give enough. But Russ said what really happened is he went around to the community, Dick Kearns and Jimmy Simples and different people, Robert Solenberger, people who were very generous. They knew he wasn't coming in the door for $5,000. Most of his asks were in the $100,000, $200,000 range, trying to raise money, and actually raised more money quicker than he anticipated doing. They ended up raising close to $20 million. So.
Wow, unreal. Well, you continued the legacy of your dad's connection with Shenandoah University by creating the James R. Wilkins Jr. Athletic and Event Center. And I have to tell you, I think they had to make that building so large was just to get James R. Wilkins Jr. Special Event Center. But I'll tell you, it doesn't matter how many times you've been there, you walk in and you're just blown away by the size. I'm surprised that they haven't made, you put a zip code on that. But seats 5,000, and I thought in the back of your mind, growing up and playing basketball at Handley High School, what'd they call it? The cracker box?
Box.
Yeah, and so, by golly, you were going to make sure that those Shenandoah kids didn't play in the cracker box.
Actually, it started in 1995 when Dr. Davis was still at the university. Tracy Fitzsimmons and some of the staff were there meeting with Dr. Davis, looking at a new field house. And we put everything in that we could possibly think of. And the bids came in around $45 million. And this was in 95. So we quickly said, well, we can't afford that. And we spent the next 23 years eliminating things that we didn't have, we didn't need, like we eliminated the aquatic center because we didn't have a swim team, and that's the most expensive part. That was about $8 million. We kept picking away at things we didn't have to get it down to the price that we could afford. I think, Tracy, I don't know, we probably still have bond issues out, but we thought we could afford. Because the reason it's an event center, we knew we were going to use it for athletics. It has the indoor track, indoor basketball courts, but it seats up to 5,000 for graduation. It can be used for so many events, just like the Centennial groups having our high school class reunion is actually using it this weekend too. So it's used for lots of events. Concerts can be held there if we don't have enough room in Armstrong Hall. So it is a major event. The one difference, Handley, you go to Handley because you live in Winchester. At Shenandoah, we have to recruit kids. Kids can go anywhere to college, but we have to bring recruits in. And adding new sports, we have 22 varsity sports, adds a lot of student body. As Tracy will tell you, one of the smartest moves she had, and if you haven't seen the band yet, you better go see our marching band.
Yeah.
Last 2 Saturdays ago now, they had band recruits. Would you have 132 band recruits from 5 states? This is band recruits. These are kids that, I want to study nursing, but I'd like to play the band too. It's a big deal. And she's done a great job, and the band is worth seeing. If you haven't seen it, make sure you do see it.
Good plug. Well said. Continuing on with what you've been involved with on the boards of Winchester Equipment Company and Shenandoah Battlefields Foundation. Apple Blossom, one of your first jobs, you were selling programs as a kid.
Yeah, back then, programs cost $1 a piece, and we got 10 cents commission for every program we sold. So my father was president of the festival back in the 60s, so as a worker, all the presidents you see had to work on the festival for 10 or 15 years before they worked their way up to president. So I'd heard about the festival all my life. So when I was 10 or 11 years old, I sold programs. And I got kind of smart in that I took orders. I would go door to door and take orders for the programs before they got printed. And so therefore, when I picked up my first boxing program, all I had to do was deliver them. That way, because when they come out, every kid in every neighborhood has a program. It's like Girl Scout cookies. They're everywhere. So I took the orders in advance.
Look at it. There's the entrepreneur right here, right? Also, Apple Blossom, was it, you hadn't been driving long when you had to go pick up Dorothy Collins, right?
Yeah, my father called me, and well, first I got to say, I didn't have a car. I was 17, senior in high school. I just got my driver's license because my father said, the first car you have, you'll buy yourself. Okay, so I didn't have a real hurry to get a driver's license. Back then, the Grand Feature Parade was on Friday, and my father called me on Friday morning and said, I got a problem. I'm out. I don't have any drivers. I don't have any helpers. I need you to do this for me. Go to Dulles Airport and pick up Dorothy Collins. Now, a lot of you she was a movie star, but she was really famous for Alan Funt's Canon camera. She was using a lot of pranks on that. So I had the Dulles Airport. Well, thank God it was Dulles Airport 40 years ago, not Dulles Airport today. I had a Dodge Dart 6-cylinder Army green, beautiful car. Drove down there, picked her up. She could not have been nicer. She was lovely. She's very attractive, very nice. And I picked her up, took off, and next thing I saw, a sign said Washington. So I drove and thought, and I said, Miss Collins, we're going east to D.C., and we should be going west. She said, what are you going to do? I said, if you weren't here, I know what I would do. I'd go across the median. And she said, well, be my guest. So we went across the median back home, and we got along fine after that. But can you imagine the day trying to get across the median?
A couple of festival highlights. You were festival president for 1977 and 78. Saw the introduction of the sports breakfast by your dad, Dick Kern and Russ Potts. Added the 10K race in 1978. You were voted into the Apple Blossom Sports Hall of Fame in 2022. And continuing on, you were selected as the Top of Virginia Regional Chamber's Citizen of the Year in 2014. And what made that pretty special is the fact that you followed in your dad's footsteps there too.
Yes, fortunately for me, my father received the award in the mid-50s as Citizen of the Year, primarily for his work with Shannon University. And for a lot of those here, I'm going to regress a little bit who may not know the history of our family. My father, born 1910, quit school in 1926 at the age of 16, had $250 in his pocket. And he left there, went to California. He was a big man, lied about his age, and got a job driving heavy equipment in California oil fields. I could go on forever, but that's how his life started. Moved to Winchester after World War II. I was born in 45. He got married during the war. So now, that period after World War II, he was possessed. He worked in everything. And I asked him, I said, you work 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. He said, for the first time in my life, I could do anything I wanted to do. He said, up until now, we just worked till Friday night. He said, I now can be whatever I want to be. Now, he never went to college. He said he quit high school. His mother did insist to come back and finish. But he did all his own survey work for all his developments. He did all his own architectural work. And Keith Williams, who's architect here, would sign off his plans for load bearing and so forth. He drove a Datsun, little yellow 210. He paid $2,500 for it. A two-door. Only had his little half windows. He stuck his survey equipment through the back half window. And he sold the car for a profit, and he was tickled to death. He wasn't cheap. He just came up the hard way. He did something which I think I want to say now since I have a crowd here. He lived to be 86. My mother passed away. My son Richie worked with him. He got the chance to see that he was doing well, I'm doing well, comfortable. He wasn't looking about people being rich, just being comfortable, having what you need. He did something I've never heard anyone else doing. He worked with Aubrey Owens, his attorney, and put everything he owned in a charitable trust for the community. At age 83, 3 years before he died. 3 years before he died, he didn't even own a pair of socks. Richie, Donna, my sister, and I were the trustees, and we rented his car back to him. We rented his house back to him. We gave him a $200 a week allowance. Big spenders. He would come in, and he worked every day through age 86. And he'd come in and he'd say, he'd laugh. He'd say, well, we get along all right, are we? Because if two of the three of us fell out with him, established an army, I guess. I don't know where else he would go, which never occurred. And I asked him, I said, why are you doing this? And he said, well, there's a lot of things will happen here after I die that I would want to help. And I know if I leave you all will see the help. Example was Patsy Cline's museum. My father was deceased. They opened Patsy Cline Museum. We helped furnish the museum, help fund some of the museum. Patsy Cline and her mother actually came to our house to borrow my father's reel-to-reel tape recorder because he would use the tape recorder to practice his speaking engagements. And when Mrs. Helmsley and Patsy were standing in the vestibule, he said, they picked up the recorder and left. He said, one day she's going to be famous. So that was long before that.
Wow. Wow. So from the Chamber Citizen of the Year in 2014 and 2022, just last year, Lifetime Community Impact Award. And we were sitting at the same table, and you were telling me these incredible stories about your dad. And lo and behold, that's when you revealed that Donna was working with you on the book. As far as giving back to the community, what would you say to today's high schoolers?
Sorry,
What would you say to today's Handley graduates as far as giving back to the community?
I'm not sure just for Handley graduates, but for people in this room and Handley graduates, if not initially, at least 10 years later. If you want a better community, you have to make it. If you're not happy with something, don't say, complain, we ought to do something. City council needs to change that. No, get involved. Get involved yourself. Find 2 or 3 like-minded individuals that agree with you. You're on a committee. Make things happen. You can do it. Most people don't do it. They just, I hate to say complain. They all chat and complain, have coffee, and this is wrong. If it's wrong, you can change it. And it's amazing what 1 or 2 people can do. And I look back at what Judge Handley meant to us, but also people in the community like Russ Potts, all the stuff he did over the years. Being active, being involved, and working. I always worked approximately a 75, 80-hour week. And they talk about a 40-hour week, and then now UAW wants a 32-hour week. I'm like, what the hell is that? How can you get ahead?
Well, on a personal level, I mean, we have to touch upon your love for the outdoors. You love hunting and fishing, as well as preserving wildlife, lands, and waters. And the book goes into all kinds of details. You've hunted in Colorado, Canada, New Mexico, Alaska, Utah, South Carolina, Venezuela, Florida. Some of the stories that stuck out, the sentimental side of you. Talk about the plaid hunting jacket.
As I told you, I grew very early, and all the kids I picked on in the 7th, 8th grade all of a sudden started passing me. But when I was 15, my mother brought me a Woolrich plaid jacket from Mulvey's Menswear on the mall, and I still have it today. I think it's left over from my father. I still use it, still wear it. It's no problem.
Wow, wow. Also, I mean, you and your hunting buddies and your guides, so knowledgeable about the outdoors and tracking and so forth. But one story that amused me was how you found your way back to camp, your hunting camp one day or one night.
That's the Canadian bear hunt.
Yeah.
First place, I know a lot of you may or not appreciate hunting, and I understand that. I'm not here to sell you on it, except that I'm fairly much a purist. I like the turkey hunt and like the elk hunt, and have a great hunt for 2 weeks in a row and never even see a turkey or an elk, because you're communicating with the animal. You're calling to them, they call back. So we're in Canada bear hunting, and Canada is hard to explain because we live in the mountains. Eastern Canada is just flat for miles and miles. If you're going to the woods, it's flat in the woods. And the outfitters, the guys, anybody you talk to tell you, do not wander. You got a path to a tree stand, get in the tree stand, and we were guiding ourselves. We didn't have guys. Do not wander. Don't leave that. Just take the path back to the road. Well, I shot a bear with my bow, and the bear went to the right. Fortunately, it was dark by then, so I was going to the left. I got out to the road, had to walk about 3 miles back to camp, and got help. Went back, looked for the bear, and the bear had made it from where I shot to about the back of the room, and we had toilet paper, 12 pieces of toilet paper to mark a trail. And we had flashlights, and there's 4 of us, and all 4 were outdoors people. And we got the bear, and we turned around, couldn't find the toilet paper, and we all 4 wanted to go in a different direction. And a little bit intimidating when it's pitch black and you're lost in a place tell you not to get lost in daylight. Fortunately, a friend of ours from Wardsville, West Virginia, John Bowman, is an excellent hunter and outdoorsman. He said, we want to go this way, and he was right. It was the right way.
Yeah, you think nowadays with compasses and GPS and so forth, but a toilet paper trail was pretty intriguing. Being outdoors is so important to you, and in the book you talk about, what is it called, forest bathing? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe share what that is.
Well, there's a serenity of being in the woods and being in the forest. And people who don't live in the woods maybe don't appreciate it, but being out there, it's calming, it's quieting. And I've raised my kids, Richie's children particularly, trying to take them out and learn the woods. They don't have to hunt. That's the least of their worries. But little things, we teach them, go out in the woods and show them elm trees and hickory trees and what's the difference. The acorn trees provide the nuts for the wildlife. The hickory trees is what the Indians used to make their bows from, because you can't really break a hickory stick. It just bends. It has tremendous powers. So they all adapt. They love it. They couldn't wait for our trips out to the woods. And I would give the kids a quarter for each turkey feather they could find. On a typical Sunday morning, they'd find 5 or 6 feathers each. And here comes Lillian, she's now 25 and she's working on her doctorate at UCLA. But here comes Lillian dragging a whole turkey in. I said, Lillian, I can't, there's 3,000 feathers on the turkey. I can't give you a quarter. So she got a quarter.
Well, speaking of family, you're a proud dad to Elizabeth and Richie, and Richie, of course, serving on boards and continuing the Wilkins legacy. But talk about the first time Ronnie walked into Wilkins Shoe Center.
Well, there's 2 different stories here. There's the truth and there's Ronnie's story. That's enough clapping, Betty. No. He's so welcome. I met Ronnie at the shoe center, which is a good place. She was in with her mother, and I'd seen her in the city park. I played softball out there, and she was friendly. We'd say hello, and she'd talk. Most when you say hello to them, they grab their purse like you're going to snatch it. So she left, and I asked one of the girls that worked for me, I said, do you know her name? She said, well, I know her last name, but not her first name, or vice versa. So anyway, I called her that evening, and she and her mother lived together. She took the phone, and she said, we talked a while, and I asked her out, and she said, well, aren't you married? I said, well, I'm separated. Well, that didn't... Oh, I got the microphone. Anyway, it didn't. After a conversation, it didn't work well. And she said, "No, I don't think I want to." I said, "Okay." So I sat there and I said, "You know, I could have done that a little better." So I called back about 5 minutes later, and her mother answered the phone, and she said, "It's him again." And so I think I did a little better job selling myself a second time, and Ronnie agreed to go out with me. I said, well, we set a date, went out, and we hit it off real well. We've been together for 45 years now, so.
Wow.
As a matter of fact,
Awesome.
her mother moved in with us too, so.
Well, you dedicated the book to her, and it's interesting. You wrap up the book, and you talk about your property at Silver Lake and how important it was to be surrounded by woods and to have a lake to fish in, and having the grandkids and nieces and nephews come. And you talk about how Ronnie's like one of the kids, that she's always organizing games, and it's always a party when she's around with these kids. And I love this quote. You said, "She's the life of my party." Oh, yeah.
It's the truth, and it's very different because Ronnie grew up in Ireland, moved here as a teenager, went to girls' Catholic schools, doesn't know a thing about sports, nothing, and less about hunting, and that's my two passions. But Donnie said she learned, and she's glad to go along now. I'll be honest, she's not real happy when football season starts, but between college and pros, she's looking for a movie to watch. But got along great, and Ronnie has been really a big piece of our family. My grandkids, Richie's children, my daughter Elizabeth, her two sons, when they call, they ask for Ronnie. She's obviously more fun, and she's done a great job, and I do appreciate it. But also, while I have a chance, Donna, if you would stand there, Donna's the one who really wrote the book. And her husband, Bruce, beside her. Bruce has read the book dozens and dozens of times because as we wrote stories, Donna, very similar to Ronnie, knows very little about hunting or sports through the woods. So the first year, we met about every 2 weeks, and she would tape record it, and I said, Donna, they're not elks or not deers. So we go back and work it. And then Bruce would reread it and see what was right or wrong. But I do thank you. Writing a book is something that you might think about when your head's on a pillow, but you're really never going to do it. But during COVID, she said it's something, project she'd like to take on, and she's done a great job with it. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Well done, Donna. Speaking of the book.
We have, I think about half the room, if more, have a copy of the book, but we have more copies of the book here. Harry Smith is kind enough to carry them up for me because I don't walk very well, which is, so I should tell you, I have Charcot-Marie tooth disease, which is not contagious, so don't run for the door. So I have no balance. And if you hear someone say to you, well, I saw Mr. Wilkins come down the mall, but I think he was drunk. Please tell him no, that's just the way I walk. So we do have more books here. Harry's been kind enough to carry in for me, and please let me know. We're glad to give a book to anyone who's courteous enough to take it home with them. Appreciate it.
Well, we've got time for questions. Does anybody have a question? Again, speak up. Don't be shy. We're a very informal little gathering here, our little fireside chat. Oh, look, our fire's still going. But anybody have a question for Jimmy?
Anybody but Jimmy Umps.
There's one right here.
Jimmy, did you have athletes that you looked up to from Handley when you played?
Well,
Past athletes.
it depends on which generations. You had people like Ed Grimm, tremendous athlete. Your dad, Alan Stryker, tremendous quarterback. Donnie Oates, great quarterback. But I'm going to go where I shouldn't go. The best football player probably ever been in Handley was Dennis Hinkle. And Dennis just passed away about a year ago. Dennis was approximately 6'2", about 225 pounds, never lifted a weight, just natural ability, was not mean except on the field. He played offense and defense. He started from Handley his 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade years. Besides all that, he ran the third leg on the state championship 880 relay team. So here's a 225-pound sprinter coming down the track. Dennis was just a tremendous athlete. He could do anything, play anything. I have my famous story, and I'm sorry to prolong, but against George Mason High School, they ran a single wing. Their tailback later played for Duke and was the linebacker of the Redskins. But the tailback, his name was Carlos. He was an all-American type guy. You couldn't contain him. So Ed Seibert said, there's no way we can tackle him, but we cut their offense in half. His brother is a 6'6" beanpole that plays offensive end. And told Dennis, he said, no matter where he goes, your defensive end, I want you to go out with him, no matter where he goes, and chuck him so he can't get off the line of scrimmage. So that way, if we break up their passing attack, maybe we can gang tackle the tailback. On the second, now Dennis, again, was not mean. He didn't have any pads on at all, just his shoulder pads and his short sleeve shirt. They ran a couple plays, and Dennis, again, followed orders. And on the third play of the game, Dennis lifted up with a chuck like this, broke the face mask in half, broke the guy's nose. And, of course, when you break your nose, blood was everywhere. They took him, wheeled him off to the hospital, and we had a 20-0 lead at halftime. He came back from the hospital, which was only down the street, the old hospital. He came back and tried to play again because we had a broken nose, it's bleedy. He played about 2 plays, couldn't play. And he was out of the game, and we still won the game 31-20, but we couldn't stop the tailback. But Dennis was probably the best player, best athlete I've been around. He finished 4th in the state in the discus and 5th in the state in shot put, or vice versa, and was state champion on the 80 relay team. So.
Another question, yes.
Sir, you don't look like you're 6'5".
Who asked? Oh, Sandy. No, I'm not 6'5".
What happened?
I quit growing. I'm kind of a freak. I could palm basketballs in both hands in 7th grade. My arms are extremely long. My legs are extremely long. I just quit growing. Just stopped. And it's kind of funny. A lot of friends I have now who are in their 70s, as you get older, you shrink. I haven't shrunk particularly. They have. And it's kind of funny. I walk up to guys who are my size, and I'm like 6 or 8 inches taller now. I don't know, some weird genetics. I'm sorry.
You know, Jimmy, it was a long time ago, but I sold your father that B210. I was very young, maybe 14, 15. And the price was $2,600. But he bought it for $2,400. And my father just gave me Bluebird hell because we was making money back then. But a kind of controversial question, with all that's going on with Handley, what do you think of lights in Handley?
I didn't set that up, but John and I have talked about this subject before. John knows exactly what I think. Unfortunately, I'm not here to start a fight with anybody, but I'm 100% against lights at Handley. It's been there 100 years. That's I think that Reed Prosser, the athletic director, and I do think they have some issues. Now that you have boys and girls teams and you have varsity and junior varsity, it makes scheduling difficult, but there's plenty of other places we can practice. We always practiced below the football field. That was where the varsity practices, where the JV practices below that. They don't even use those now because they got AstroTurf. The field of Danny Morgan sits empty most all year. They play 5 football games out there. So there's other solutions. Lights are not the solution. And fortunately, I've been asked to be on the committee to review everything. And I just hope, I don't want to say anything I will regret, but I hope other people will speak up, make your feelings known to the school board, to the city administration, Jason Van Hukelum. My problem I have, Jason's a great guy. I get along with him fine. But people like him, they move in here for 4 or 5 years, make these decisions which change the complexion of our whole community, and they're gone. And it's not fair. I've lived here for 77 years. I'll probably be alive after you leave. Don't change what we as citizens have loved for years.
Okay. Is that Tracy? Yeah.
Yes. Jimmy, I love your humor and I love your stories, but I was struck tonight just by the basic wisdom in so much of what you say. I'm not talking about the lights, I'm talking about all those other stories. And I just wonder, as you think on everything you've learned and you look to the future, what do you wish for Handley and what do you wish for our community over the next 25 to 50 years? Are there things you hope, there are lessons that are learned, or new things that are started, or values? I don't know. What is it?
Oh, Tracy, I wish I could help you there. My father had tremendous vision. I say that and you think I'm crazy, but he could look out 25 or 30 years. Most of us were lucky if we could look a year or two out. To answer part of your question, when I graduated, our senior class, about 115, our senior class, half of them toward National Fruit, the other half toward O'Sullivan. Because if you weren't going to college, that's probably where you're going to work. Crown Cork and Seal was just under construction, just opened up. My father gave the idea about vision. He told me back in the 50s that the city or county or whatever the jurisdiction was would build a sewer plant on Route 7 where it crosses the Opequon, which is where it was built 30 years later. That's the wisdom he had. He understood the geography, the geology, he understood the waterways. Now, his life when he came here, he built housing subdivisions, he built the industrial park. Now, he didn't have any money, but he had the vision. All the stuff we see today, he hated apartments, but apartments are a way of life because he felt like you had to build homes, you had to own a home and be a part of the community. You weren't a part of the community unless you owned a home, paid taxes, your kids went to local schools. Now, having seen that 50s, that's the mentality I grew up under till now. And I'm like a lot of people. We're growing too fast. Are we being overwhelmed because Loudoun County and Fauquier County, a lot of those areas don't allow construction, so they leapfrog the mountain and come out here to us, and it affects us on our roads because we're just as an old town and our roads aren't big enough for a lot of this construction. So it really takes, and I don't know if I have the wisdom to figure out how we're going to grow as a community without causing problems for ourselves. I'm not sure I answered your question, Tracy, but it's certainly a good question.
Yeah, Bruce. Jimmy, looking at your involvement with the Apple Blossom Festival, you've been a number of sports personality. Which of the one or two do you think
most impressive to you?
Believe it or not, I think I've been involved with the sports personalities since the beginning, and undoubtedly, unquestionably, it was Calvin Hill. Calvin went to Yale. After Yale, he went to Dallas Cowboys and later the Washington Redskins. But he also was the IC4A, which is the predecessor to the NCAA, champion in the broad jump. So not only was he an All-American football player, IC4A champion in the broad jump. His son today is Grant Hill, who Duke and NBA basketball player. While Calvin was with the Dallas Cowboys, he got his doctorate in divinity from SMU. So you talk about impressive. Yeah. And his wife was equally impressive. Very attractive, taught trigonometry. Anybody that even can spell trigonometry is impressive. Taught trigonometry, and she was lovely. And matter of fact, I saw Calvin about a year ago at Dulles Airport. I shook hands and thanked him for the time he's in Winchester. I don't think he really recognized me, although we spent a lot of time together. I think it was 30 years ago, 35 years ago. But we've had some great sports celebrities, but he's probably the tops.
And we have time for another question.
Rodney. Yeah. That's the case.
He had the Boise State sweatshirt on. I wasn't real sure.
Jimmy, I'm going to ask you this question because I think, parents here can take it back to their kids. I'm sorry that there's not younger kids here. And the grandparents can take it back to their grandchildren. But your love for the sport, and not too many people know that you never missed a day of school. And you would go to school sick, and tell the people why you would go to school sick.
You mean why I went or why you didn't? Roger and I played football together, obviously, so we're friends. We pick on each other. Well, I think what he's referring to, and Jimmy Dix's area, he probably knows, if you didn't go to school, you couldn't practice that day. So, and if you didn't go to school on Friday, you couldn't play Friday or Saturday. So I never missed a day. We walked to school every day, which sounds, he walked to school. That's Benny Butler. We lived in the same neighborhood. We all walked to school. We very, very rarely do we have a day off for snow. I remember climbing through the window to get into class because the snow was up so high. It's out of the question today. Rodney, does that answer what you wanted, or? The one thing also about sports, a lot of the schools and school systems, as they run a little short of funding, the first thing I want to do is drop a sport. On the surface, that sounds great, and I'm a fiscal conservative, so yeah, it sounds great to me. But so much of your student body wants to go to play football, play basketball, play track, cross country, soccer, whatever their sport of choice is. And that kid, that might be the only reason he's going to school, because he wants to play. My parents were real good to me, and I had good parents that pushed me through college, but I went to high school to play sports. I took what I had to take to get through, and I went to college. I tried doing the same thing. That's why I went to 3 different colleges. But and Shenandoah was one of them, by the way. I'll tell you, going to Shenandoah University is wonderful. Back then it was Shenandoah College. It's wonderful when your dad's chairman of the board.
Jimmy, what a beautiful night this has been, and for what you've given to Handley, what you have given to this community, a true treasure, and the book just spells out so much. But bless you. Thank you very much for all you've done
Thank you.
and continue to do.
Thank you, Barry. Thank all of y'all for being here. I really didn't know it was just my family who was going to be the only ones to be here, so but I really do appreciate it. And as Barry said, we have extra books. We have plenty of books. If anyone would like a copy, they're not being sold. Mr. Umps might sell his. I don't know. You can. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.